Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast in the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And I know we're in the throes of summer, but the reality is society is in the throes of technology, you know? And if we really want to get technical, every advancement was a part of technology. Right now, we're thinking information technology. There are worlds of discussions about what's happening with data. We know that data justice connected to a friend of Detroit is Different, member of Detroit is Different, and that's Tawana Honeycomb Petty and all the work she does in digital justice. But along with digital justice comes a lot of digital work, how people work, what cybersecurity is, how that connects. But before we even get into that, bringing in a brother that works in that space, but also is of the community. And walking that path and connecting with this as people talk about the industry and excitement and all of this stuff, y'all about to get the real deal of a black person in tech, because we talk around it, we talk about it. A lot of the discussions, I think, are for like teenagers to get involved, but that sounds good and all. What happens when you an adult? When you sustaining your business, getting into a career, running in that space? You about to get some of those stories. Mr. Terrance Campbell, how are you today, my brother?
I'm doing good, my brother. I appreciate the opportunity to share my experiences and give some folks some information with respect to digital technology, cybersecurity, gaming, AI, because that's real hot right now.
Yeah.
So let's get to it.
All right, so before we get there, we always give context on what Detroit is different.
Okay.
You and your Detroit story, your peoples, how did y'all get about to Detroit? Are you like first generation, second generation? How deep does your family run in the D?
So that's a very, very good question. So I'm actually not from Detroit.
Even more reason.
I'm actually a Flintstone. Okay? And my family, my father's side of the family came to Flint by way of Akron, Ohio.
Wow.
By way of Scotland. Okay, so our family go back when folks talk about old stories in terms of Britain and all of that, and Robert the Bruce, the Campbells, his heavy. That's my people.
Wow. All right. So first, let's tie Akron to Flint. Like when people often ask, like some of the what we call them like I consider Detroit and Chicago like cousin cities.
Okay.
But I consider they're like what I would call like little cousin cities.
Absolutely.
You got Flint to Detroit.
Yep.
You got Gary to Chicago.
Absolutely.
And you got Akron to Cleveland.
Absolutely.
So you all went from like your family went from like the Flint of Cleveland to the real Flint, Flint of Detroit.
Absolutely, and that was by way I call him Papa with the chicken. So my great grandfather, I did actually have the opportunity to develop a relationship with both of my great grandparents, and actually our two sons, Terrance and Tyler, actually had an opportunity to develop a relationship with them as well. And so he had the first Black-owned gas station in Genesee County.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah.
So,
and then on the other side, kind of the entertainment side of the house, my dad's first cousin is Dee Dee Bridgewater.
Wow. So if anybody knows Dee Dee Bridgewater, many hits in that era of like when we think of the richness, even working a little pre-Motown and then during that Motown era, like
Absolutely.
You think of like the Jackie Wilson era. You think of the and these are the artists that kind of built a four-way for a Berry Gordy to have a space, like the culture to
Absolutely.
exist to grow what Motown became.
Absolutely. She was actually just here about a month ago performing at the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And one of the halls that the Wayne State, they're rebuilding their theater the Theater of Performing Arts, and one of the halls in there is actually dedicated to her.
Wow, that's deep.
Oh,
That's
absolutely,
powerful.
absolutely.
But Akron, what was it that led from Scotland to Akron?
You know what? I really, really don't know. Aside from what folks was moving from down south to the north, Generous Motors, Ford, Chrysler, jobs in the manufacturing industry, and of course, you got cars, other modes of transportation, gas. So of course, that just helped my grandfather again, being one of the first black-owned gas stations in Genesee County. And so different opportunities, and he was a character, because I mean, to have a business hat on in terms of being a business owning a gas station, but then he also had a farm. That's why I called him Papa with the chickens.
Wow.
So it was always a good time, man, going over his house, playing with the chickens and then playing. But then he's like, okay, we got to go over to the gas station. He actually put me to work.
Hey.
Work type deal. So I was not work was something that I was very accustomed to as early as 5-6 years old.
That's deep. Now let's get into a little bit of that Flint culture. As Flint in Detroit, that relationship, that 75 stretch. What was your understanding of Detroit? Like, what was your understanding of Detroit coming down to Detroit? That connection.
So Detroit was definitely a place to be. I came up in that era of hip hop, with NWA.
Okay.
Don't play that in my car. Y'all be driving around playing that loud music, and then of course Run DMC, right? So that was Adidas, jogging suits, b-boys, all of that. Where you gonna go? You gonna go to Northland, So we would spend weekends, up in Detroit, mom, shopping, all that cool kind of stuff.
And wait, let me as you breaking right there, I do got to give a shout out from my hip hop days. One of the first OGs that showed me and many other people a great deal of love, and that's when I think of really putting like Michigan on the map because of everything with, as they say, the Awesome Dre incident with Russell Simmons' cousin, which led to MC Breed, one of my favorite hip-hop songs and one of the best samples of the Funkadelics of Ain't No Future in My Frontin'. And I remember, like, that song was like a moment in time where it was like, bam.
Right.
Like, that was like, and then when people said, he from Flint, I'm like, he from Flint.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
We got a lot of things, though.
Oh, I know. But
in
just in
terms of-
Detroit.
Right.
know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? Like,
Absolutely.
I'm a kid, and they like, yeah, this guy at Billy T in the rap mix. I'm quoting this because recently there was a discussion about Detroit rap history at the Charles Wright.
Awesome.
And Jake the Flake was there speaking on Flint, and when they were talking and giving all these names, I'm like, man, and I'm like, Breed, because Breed was in my relationship with him, and then many other people that I would interact with, rest in peace, he was approachable.
Oh, absolutely.
He was
absolutely.
also one of the first rappers to go down to Atlanta and like get hip hop going in Atlanta, because pre-Breed, it was like LaFace. It was like R&B, soul, like trying to basically go to Atlanta and create a new Motown. Breed there kind of gathered a lot of the other artists to come. And just so many other things about his story that I don't think are highlighted the way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have the fortune, while I stayed on the south side of Flint, I had a cousin, Chocolate, Demond Grays. He stayed on the north side of Flint. These is folks, Breed, the Dayton family,
Top Authority,
and all the other hip-hop quotables that came out of Flint. He grew up with these cats. So, of course, I got to meet these cats. These are very approachable, down-to-earth cats. Yeah. One other thing, though, that folks don't know, and I'm going to just, throw a shout-out to him. My favorite hip-hop artist of all time, Ice-T, because he went from 6 in the morning, Police at My Door. I think this is his 12th season or something like that. SWV, he spent time in Flint a lot of time.
I did not know that.
In Flint. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Back when we had the Copa, North Saginaw, all that, and it used to be lit up like Jefferson. Yeah, man, we had a lot of cool artists that would come through, man, and then just hang out in Flint, because Flint was a low key spot,
Yeah.
And so I think the one of the things, this was back in, oh gosh, I want to say the mid '90s, where they did there was a reality show that was doing different shows about strip clubs
Mm-hmm.
in the country, and they did one about the Hammer Dropper.
Mm.
That was in Flint. Yeah,
That's
and
deep.
not to put that out there, kind of that, but I mean there was a
But,
lot of
it's
different
just
kinds
in
of
culture.
things that
Yeah.
the culture absolutely that went on in Flint that a lot of people just don't know. But Breed put that. I'm glad that he's got the love when he was alive, and he's still getting the love from the
Yeah.
culture in terms of Flint.
I waved the banner like it threw me off kind of like when he dropped like his last number one hit, and this was what's so weird, like when he dropped, I want to say that was like 01, 02, like let's go to the club. So I'm rapper, young, fresh out of high school, really, and we meet at through rest in peace another guy. Like I mean, rap sometimes can be such a culture that definitely tells the stories of the streets, but also assumes street life too. So Wipeout, that was the manager of the East Side Cheddar Boys, that tragically was murdered at one point in time, was somebody that I worked with just as a rapper. He'd sometimes be like, hey, come do this. This is back when I had my radio show, and he'd be like, hey, young rapper. So he introduced me to Breed
Nice.
one day, like Thursday. Then that Friday, he like, man, yeah, I'm gonna just be around town, walking around or whatever. So we hang out with Breed Thursday, Friday, Saturday, almost to the point where like sometimes you're young and you forget who somebody is,
Mm-hmm.
almost like familiarizing them. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, oh man, Breed in Coney Island with us, we chilling with Breed, and you forget who he is, right? Then we're walking down the street, going to one of the festivals at Hart Plaza with Breed, almost like a week later. And I mind you, like I'm young, like I say, like 18, 19. And we just talking to Breed like he one of our homies at this point, and he just hanging with us.
That's awesome.
And like I can tell you, like on Jefferson, like right before the tunnel to go to Canada, right? It's 3 cars with like, I want to say some of the finest women I ever seen in my life to that point. Stop, pull over, and be like, Breed! And this is pre-camera phones or anything. They just get out,
Wow.
want his autograph, hug him, and it just like it humbled us to the point where like, okay, we are not him.
Right. Absolutely.
And then he was like, hey, young man, you know, like little dog, like, you know what I'm saying? This happened all the time. I'm just back chilling, figuring this out. And it was interesting to see him navigate with a number one hit song in the country, but labels not necessarily agreeing to what he felt was the best independent deal, which I definitely didn't understand at that time. I just looked at it like, okay, it seems like he would be bigger, you know, because this is concurrent. I know it doesn't sound like this, but this is concurrent where basically that song was as big of a song that Eminem put out. And it was Proof, another rest in peace, back to the rap,
Absolutely.
that said, hey, you know Breed got a hit as big as Eminem independently.
Absolutely.
That he's pitching off himself, that the people from Flint, back to that business connecting, helped create. So it was a.
But are you
interesting thing.
surprised? I mean, in terms of the culture, let's go back to a group that hung out in Flint a little bit before they
Yeah.
really got mainstream, or folks really liked them since they heard them on the radio. Was 8 Ball and MJG.
True.
How long
True.
they was doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Right. And many other rappers.
Yeah.
That we talk about that actually came to the industry like, no, y'all not pimping us. We're looking for partners that had to continue to do they deal until the industry was woke, not to use the term, but I mean,
and when you think about Top Authority, Dayton Family, Breed, like a lot of independent music and a wave of like what exists now of where hip hop is, and really a lot of what I see happening in Memphis, which I know you got a relationship there too,
Absolutely.
was like a wave of a city like Flint.
Absolutely.
First.
Absolutely.
Because it was immense places where you're right. Like most artists knew, okay, we can pass through Detroit, but we can probably go to Flint, do some in-stores. We can probably do a concert where like you could actually, and it still happens today. Like I think DJ Drama did like a weekend in Flint. Flint is one of those places where if they like you, they will see you Friday night, they will see you Saturday night, and they will come Sunday to whatever else you're doing.
Oh, but even more importantly, because we in Michigan, we travel everywhere. Oh, we bumping you where we go.
Yeah, that too.
We bumping you, and if you ain't liking it, it don't matter. We still bumping it.
Yeah. Yeah. But if for an artist to know that like I can do 3 shows in the same city and not be like Taylor Swift or Beyonce, because
Absolutely.
you know what I'm saying? Like
Before
yeah.
them, in the early '80s till today.
Yeah. 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 And shout out Ready for the World too when we think of
Oh
Flint.
man, it's so funny. My one of my best friends, that's a detective for the Colorado Police Department. His parents live by their parents.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting. So now let's get more into like your journey through it. What school in Flint? Because anybody from Flint gonna already. That's the other thing about Flint.
Right. So I graduated from Flint Academy in '89, and that was the year that Flint Academy merged with Southwestern Academy. But even before that, probably the coolest thing that I had ever had in high school is that Terry Crews, the actor, was my mentor.
Ah, okay.
In high school. And so a lot of folks don't know he can draw his ass off.
No, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, Terry can draw.
How good of a football player was he?
Oh, I'm not a sports guy, so I didn't
You didn't
follow
see. Okay.
his sports career, but I do have a couple of friends from Flint. So that would be Jeff Lillard, who is the captain for Kalamazoo Police, the city of Kalamazoo Police. We rode on the bus together. He played football there, and then I got a fraternity brother. I'm sending a shout out to Kappa Alpha Psi, specifically Gamma Beta chapter, because that was Western Michigan. Arthur Woods, who actually played with Terry, and they have nothing but good things to say about Terry. But even before that, in terms of my journey, so I go back to, and I'm going to put out there, I'm a gamer, okay? So when we're talking about this IT and cybersecurity stuff, okay, back in 1984, okay, Atari 800.
Wow.
XL to help me manage my paper route. I mean, we could have paper routes back then, in 7th grade. So I actually created back then what would be a crude version of QuickBooks to help me manage what I call my social.
And you did that on a video game?
No, I did. No, I didn't do that on a video game. I coded in BASIC.
Wow.
Back then for that, and so there was that back then. There wasn't no cartridges, as we know them bad boys today. You had not the 5 1/4 floppy disk. You had cassettes, and so you had cassettes. And you couldn't stop that bad boy. You had to let it play through, or you could code in BASIC.
And this is where when we met through, obviously we'll get to that, but when we met through Regina, it was in passing at the downtown at the main post office.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in that meeting, I was just telling you about my father that does a lot of coding and design and like into more so accounting systems. So just being a brother in that space, and I was like, nah, you're up on game. You knew about the SOC reporting, a lot of the stuff that I've been capturing from my dad and learning about. So I figured you had an early entrance. How did you first learn in computer programming?
I just did it, man. I did the year that I got the Atari 800 XL. A couple of other kids on the block got that as well. I had the code, though. My dad came with a stack of electronic gaming books. And it was like, I'm not buying all this other stuff for you. You going to learn how to code.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's back in like 80...
83, 84.
83, 84.
Yep.
You're learning coding.
Absolutely.
And that vision. What made your dad tie in that vision?
I really don't know. Hadn't even asked him. It was one of those things. Hey, thank you very much for Christmas. Kind of deal. Because I went on from there. My love of tech, if you will, had me doing geometry, calculus, physics 1 and 2, chemistry 1 and 2, biology 1 and 2. And so the opportunity that it afforded me, it was GMI when I was coming up. General Motors Institute is now Kettering Institute. They had a competitive program for just going into the summer of my junior year. Kids going into their junior year all over the world could actually participate in a residential 6-week summer program. Changed my life, man.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because when we get into this tech space, it's a lot less of us.
Oh, absolutely.
And then being young in that
Oh,
space
man,
can put
it
a
was-
different framework. What was it like? Where did it take place? What were the days like? I'm pretty sure you were probably the only brother in that group, possibly, or maybe like two others. You know what I'm saying?
And you are absolutely right. Well, actually, there were 3 others. So there was myself, 2 gentlemen from Saginaw, and then now the judge, Flint. He was one of the circuit court judges in Flint, David Gwynn, were in that program out of a cohort of 30. So we had a regular quarter, no different than freshmen would have. So we had a full load. It was, and like I say, it changed my life, man, because at that time, it was, we going to go to college, but I mean, we didn't know what college really looked like, right? And so to be going into your junior year in high school, having had not just a college experience, an experience at General Motors.
Real internship experience.
Absolutely. It was crazy, but in the, while I did not do well enough to get a scholarship to go to GMI. At that time, it was AC Rochester. So it was a two-phase process where we had to get an employer to say, okay, we going to sponsor you. And then, so what you got an employer, you still got to apply to the program. So while I didn't do well enough to earn a scholarship at GMI, I did do well enough to get an internship.
That's deep. For
AC Rochester. So my senior year, let me step back a little bit. So because of me taking all of those classes, those extra math classes, science classes, I did have coding class, and in high school, I could have graduated my junior year, but they was like, nope. So it worked out for me in the case of both my senior year. Half of the day
you were spent
I was at school. And then the other half of the day, I'm at AC Rochester. So ever since I've been in junior and high school, wearing shirt and tie has been part of my MO.
Let me ask this. And then earlier on, it's also like a culture to tech.
Absolutely.
I believe nowadays, and shout out Marlon, when I think Marlon Williams does a lot to, like, with Sister Code to try to
Marlon is my girl. She the truth.
To speak to, like, breaking it, but especially back then, just from what my dad would say, where coding, as sometimes they make it seem like, okay, it's a white male dominated industry, but to say that about any industry that makes a lot of money in America, it'd be like repetitive.
Right.
But even within that industry, it's very, what I would say, like, because kind of sometimes creatively with the camera work, I run into this, like, it's very introverted, very, like, even the way that the instructions are delivered, like, it takes a lot of what I would say the attention and care that, like, a high school teacher even gives a student versus getting in that world are, like, culturally such worlds apart. Because when I've seen this, usually in that tech space, it's almost like you kind of just got to get on the train, learn how to learn how to get in where you fit in, and follow the system.
Very much so. Very much so.
And how was that for you to get into that mix at that age and know that, like, this ain't like high school? It's like my instructor is not going to pull me to the side, call my parent. You're slacking behind. You're basically just going to walk in one day and nothing's going to be on your desk to do because you're not showing improvement.
Absolutely. So let me unpack a lot of the stuff that you did. Let me first go forward and say, the interesting thing was in terms of my internships that I did land in the accounting department. International parts. Wow. And so I was actually the database administrator. So I actually really got to redesign the whole database. So in terms of my key entry style, I get all my work done and then be like, hey, I'm done. What do you need me to do? And most times they didn't have anything for me to do. So it's like, okay, can I do my homework? And they were always like, of course. So I'm getting my work done. It was very few days that after that 4 hours of being at work that I had to come home and do homework because I did what I needed to do. Now, let's go back to your point in terms of getting where I fit in and learn the culture and all that. That was the beauty of the paper route. You know, because my folks first told me, they was like, look, aside from you sick, if this paper route ever become our paper route, you won't have no paper route.
Okay, that's old school parenting
No,
if you ever heard
no
it.
more.
That is not today's
So
version of parenting, but I
so it was a whole, different deal for me. I couldn't do any traditional organized sports because it was after school. No, after school, come home, eat something real quick. I had to be the real life version of the video game Paperboy. So let me go deliver these papers Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh no, I was busy. I was collecting. And I had to get up, Saturday. It wasn't like Saturdays today. It was Saturday morning cartoons, all that stuff that y'all think y'all is new. Super Friends, Transformers, Robotech, all of that. So I had to get up. I got up super early. I was up at like 5:30, which I still get up 5:30. Get them bad boys out so I can eat breakfast, play a little bit of the new video game. My favorite video game of all time is Zelda. Then go back out and collect. Okay, that's what I had to collect, that money. And so Sundays, I hated Sundays. For anybody out there that used to be a paper boy or paper girl, no, them inserts was nothing to joke with. Okay, them you had to wrap the inserts and then put the inserts in the paper and wrap it in paper. Take the paper out there. But I already had a plan. I was doing my project management was what I had to do. I do know that because of real life in terms of me having a job, that did contribute greatly to not just me doing well in school, but being able to interact in those environments. Because when I go to the interact with the folks at the Flint Journal, taking my money in and having to talk to my boss and all that, a lot of them folks was white folks, was white men. And so I had to carry myself in a certain way, shake their hand, look them in their eye, don't speak till talk to kind of deal. So I was already groomed, to be in that environment and be able to have my elevator pitch. We had counselors back then, not the counselors like they was today. As a matter of fact, my counselor pulled me out of one of my classes to say, oh, you going to finish this application right now for GMI's AIM program.
And as you were saying that, man, because you all can tell, obviously, like when I interview a guest where it's like things trigger in my mind that recall certain things. For me to better understand and contextualize everything, one of my first jobs was a paper route too, but it was more insulated, like I think most of my friends. So Mr. Bastida, that lived across the street, shout out Mr. Bastida, Aaron and Andre, got the paper route with his sons. He was laid off from, laid off from General Motors, and he took on, I want to say maybe about 15 different routes.
Whoa.
So with it, he would be in the back of his truck. He picked different kids that would want to run with him. Obviously, as the grown-up, it would be like almost like he would just maybe go 5 miles an hour down the block.
Right.
We knew where we would stack and bundle, but he helped with a lot of the project management. He taught us like the entries of collection, but I never had what you say, like the hands-onness to really get an understanding of the culture of where things would go. So like if you ever know like paper collecting, like right now everybody gets their information through the internet. So you all understand through movies and stuff that at one point in time people deliver newspapers and still do deliver some. Right. But for that delivery you also have the collection. It'd be you want to collect and it'd be like come back at a certain time if you want to pick up, and really people
come back a couple weeks later and you had to keep entries and all that kind of stuff.
And Mr. Bastida did all of that. All we basically did was foot soldier it, so we never dealt with what you were dealing with in learning
The whole business, if you will, absolutely,
yes.
and even to the tune of, and I'm sure y'all had, and he probably engaged y'all in this. There's always a certain amount of papers that was left over.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, that was an opportunity for me to grow my business, and so I would go talk to new people. You would
That's
catch
exactly
somebody, and
what
I'm
he
like,
would
hey,
do.
my name is Terrance. It's the Flint Journal. Hey, look, I know you're not a customer right now. Let me deliver the paper for you for 2 weeks. If you don't like it, then you ain't got to buy it. And after the first week, folks was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm getting this. Here, run it." So I was growing my business ridiculously. So just being able to get out in those spaces and just learning and being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I say that from the perspective of, and I'm sure you've heard people say it, folks are more afraid of public speaking than they are dying.
Anything.
Then I had to. That was my bread and butter. If I'm gonna make some more money, I gotta grow this route, which means I gotta have more people paying for this, getting this paper.
And while so Mr. Bestida did, that was a part of it. You know, we were thinking, oh yeah, we're gonna get off early. We can go by Toys R Us. This is what he'd take us by Toys R Us.
What's that? What's that? What's Toys R Us? That don't exist no more.
Not anymore. Yeah, exactly. A store where you would buy toys.
Right.
But we would be incentivized. We could do this, but for that, it'd be like that expansion and the way to expand that route. And we would learn. He would sit. He would talk with us. We'd be, like all these kids
That's
now.
awesome.
Head down. You want paper? And it's like, okay, was that a good pitch? You got to not mumble. You gotta look eye to eye. You got to speak. And usually, just because people support, I mean, it's a black community. It's like, I support you, young brother. Here go $20, but you got to come back to collect. And then sometimes, especially dealing with the elders will want to impart game on you too.
Absolutely.
And teach you how to build that relationship, expand that relationship. All of this were lessons that he definitely was lacing us with, and I was around it. Similar to like your son is here now. It reminds me like when I was around that age, my granddad in Cleveland, would take me around, like, and it would bother me when I was a kid, and I probably told this. So like we would travel to Cleveland. My sister would go with my grandma, and they would go to the mall and go shopping. It's like, man, I want to do that. My granddad ran a nightclub, Vales on the Circle. If anybody knows of Vales on the Circle in Cleveland,
you was working.
I would spend the day just traveling with him, and like, so I was, I'm 13, and I got like my little game genies. And I'm sitting in arbitrations with him. I'm sitting through mediations with him, watching him meet with his accountant, watching him meet with realtors, talk to the nightclub manager, watching him meet with the Chamber of Commerce. Like, and I'm just like, this is boring as ever.
Right.
At that age.
Yeah, I hear you.
But now, as I grow older, I'm like, oh, I'm meeting with accountants. I'm meeting with attorneys. I'm meeting with chambers of commerce. I'm meeting, like, even before today, like a meeting, like, and watching my granddad, which, my granddad, one of the most interesting people I've ever met, but 3rd grade education, and then watching him dictate to professionals, because that was a pitch I had to shift. And I'm like, wait, I have a precedent for this. This was my granddad. So it's like I'm paying this attorney to, like, don't tell me what I can't do.
Right.
I'm going to tell you what needs to be done. And I'm paying you. You got to figure out how to make this happen.
Absolutely.
Which I know this sounds like, I know attorney friends, even attorneys that work with me, be like, stop talking like that, Kari. But that's really what it is. As an entrepreneur, you have to understand, like, okay, let's get creative, because this is what needs to happen.
Absolutely. And that's, to your point, that's where I excelled. And so literally, those experiences, literally the day after I graduated from high school, I was an engineering and IT co-op student for the Michigan Department of Transportation.
Wow. And were you the youngest guy on that staff?
I was absolutely, yes, I absolutely was. So my first year, I grinded it out, man. I was out there helping, not only doing surveying and all of that, but beating the streets. All this stuff y'all see in construction and all of that kind of stuff. I was busy, man. 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, my dad would take me to the Davidson offices, which is where I stood. Some nights I ain't get back home to 10:30, and I ain't even eat dinner, man, some days, because it was real work. But when I transferred to Grand Rapids, because I was going to Grand Valley State University, I was a supervisor because of the experience that I had got the first time in Genesee County and everything else. So now, I'm planning out what the days look like in the roads and the bridges. And this roads and bridges over in Kent County that I actually have taken the boys and Gina over to see.
That is deep. And also back to like other cultural shifts as I walk that path. And that's, if you understand, the Detroit is Different interview, it's contextualizing the experiences and layering it.
Yeah, no,
it's the layer of being like fresh out of high school, because I wasn't even to that point with certain things, but like when you're like a kid in a lot of ways, but you're working with adults that got like families.
I'm managing.
Oh, well, that's even
adults.
more.
I'm managing contractors.
Yeah.
Over in the late 80s, over the other side of the state, okay?
Wow.
Over in Grand Rapids, Kent County, over there, it's a whole different world. So to be 19 years old, telling contractors what they can and can't do, getting cussed out, going back to my boss, and I had a cantankerous boss that would fight for me, though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this what you did? Oh, yeah. First of all, this ain't never how you going to talk to Terrance again. And, secondly, he told you need to do the road over again. You need to do the road over again at your expense.
And that right there, because I've had a job like that. And actually, my kid sister, I was telling the same thing. When you're younger than a person working in a capacity. So it's so weird, this relationship between boss and employee, that when people aren't a boss, they look at it like you can be the grand poobah and just
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's your world. I'm Michael Jordan and everybody else. But even with Michael Jordan, as we saw in The Last Dance, it's a symbiotic relationship where everyone on the team, and oftentimes the person in a leadership position is the person in a leadership position is dealing with so much more.
Absolutely.
Than the people from the outside looking in at it can even understand.
Absolutely.
So the layers in those dynamics and anything can almost like question it, especially when you're younger. What you even know? I've been here for 40 years.
Oh, man, I got that. That's one of the dark underbellies that we will definitely talk about later. That's not looked at just being a minority in your field. You're younger. I mean, I'm managing folks 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
My senior.
Yep.
And getting mad and all that kind of stuff. And we were just talking yesterday, too, about the importance or the disservice that we are in terms of the public education system. And I can talk about it from this way because I was a teacher in Tennessee, certified, and I'm getting my certification transferred to Michigan. I got 2 classes that I got to do over the next couple of months, or next couple of semesters. But we don't teach kids law, not in terms of what the law is, and then how to act with respect to the law with business people, let alone with law enforcement in other industries, and wonder why we have the challenges that we have today. Well, they don't know what they don't know.
True indeed.
And we can't keep vilifying for what they don't know. Just as an aside, though, to what we were talking about.
I mean, I was going to say that's really where we get into how do I put it? Back to like, I'm bringing culture, and when I speak to it, it's just like your understanding and what you think is normal. So
Boom,
when you're a kid and what you understand and what you think is normal, like even college was a tougher transition for me, or like I went to a vocational school right after high school, and it was tough because like in high school, and this is what I always tell kids, it's like in high school you got a test on Friday, and like Monday through Thursday, like your teacher is like basically telling you what's on the test and da. College flipped it. It's basically like you got a test on Monday, and then we'll talk about what you were supposed to read and research.
Absolutely.
So my first 2 semesters, I'm like, what in the hell is going on? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it just took, I was thinking, I can just go to class and I can just get the game. I'll know what's on the test just by sitting and listening to what the teacher's going to teach to me, because that's basically how I did high school. And it's going to be an easy A. It's like, nah, you got to independently know how to study. You got to independently know how your professor lectures to know, okay, this is probably on the test. And you got to know how to read, when they say, hey, read all 6 of these chapters, you got to know how to budget your time to know what from those 6 chapters is probably going to end up on the test.
So right, and so that's
And
one
all
of
of
the
that.
things I often talk about that I heard you say, but not directly call out. Who's teaching kids today
That,
to take good notes?
man.
And what's good notes for you
Yeah.
ain't necessarily
yes.
good notes for me. But let's unpack that a little bit, as I've talked about. So
Okay.
from K all the way to 8th grade,
Yeah.
each year, it don't matter what you did the previous year, it resets. So now we got from K to 8 to the point of your conversation where we're developing this habit that it does not matter what I didn't know or did know the year before. My performance is based on this year. So if you're not getting any of the life lessons in terms of taking notes and understanding who you are and all of that kind of stuff, and now freshman year in high school, you got to have all of that for real? After we didn't help you develop these habits? Come on now.
Yeah. 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 I mean, what you're highlighting is key. And then when we talk about that habit, it becomes even heavier, because oftentimes I'm in school thinking I want to get an A. So I'm like being repetitious. Like I'm learning almost to I'm regurgitating whatever is being input into me instead of developing my critical thinking skills.
I.e. the paper route. That was the value of the paper route. That,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm getting all of this stuff, but I'm actually practically
Yeah.
applying every day to the tune. Shoot, paper route, we got paid every week. You had to have all your numbers right and all of this and all this other stuff right to make sure that you got your money
Mm-hmm.
and that you could grow your business.
Yeah, because if you don't, then you ain't in business.
You
So
they'll take that bad boy from you quick.
so let's get into it. Like after this position, how long did you stay at that position
So
with Department of
the
Transportation?
cool thing about Department of Transportation is that you could have the job up through your junior year in college without declaring civil engineering
Mm,
as your major.
that's deep.
So, of course, what I'm gonna do? I want to be a broke college student,
Hmm.
but I loved it. They allowed me to do a lot of digital tech stuff, and let me kind of put a pin in just real quick and say, for me, because I got to make a distinction, okay? Because globally, we try to use technology and information technology the same thing. We try to interchange the words, okay? And so for me, technology is just the practical application of scientific knowledge, okay,
Hmm.
to solve a problem. And so an example that I would give is paper, okay? So we've come through history, us, and I'm gonna put it out there. We gave the world civilization. There is nothing that we as black folks didn't come up with first. Okay. So paper, papyrus, we don't want to have to remember everything. Okay. So we came up with paper and different, things in terms of before there was pencils and quills and all of that. But let's focus on paper. Okay. And then with the problem that was solving, we don't have to always remember stuff. We can write down stuff and remember again. Now we got records and all
So
that.
we got the griot in it.
All of
the
that.
griot in this village has to like travel all the way across village to just give some information that
That's
if it
it.
could be on paper, you would have it.
Here it is. And then I don't even have to remember who it came from. And then all this other, IP, we talked about attorneys, so intellectual property and contracts, all that type of stuff. So when we integrate machinery and or digital mediums into a technology, That's when we have information technology, because we're integrating the machinery or digital mediums to do one of four things: either enhances productivity, do more with less; enhances reach, get more people;
Mm-hmm.
enhances scope, oh, now we got something different; or a combination of either of those three. And so using using paper as the example of technology, information technology would be a tablet, an iPad, or anybody else's kind of tablet. In that now, I don't have to worry about how I'm gonna save it, or if it get burned up or anything like that. I got it digitally. I can share it with people. I got a website or a blog. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
making that difference allows for so many things, because we've had phones, okay, a good 30, 40 years before the first iPhone. Okay, we had technology a good 2,000 years before the first iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as we think about technology, okay, it can be these chairs
Yeah.
that we sitting in. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it could be
The water
this
bottle.
water bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it can be our clothes.
True indeed.
But when we talk about information technology in the context of that, so we got smart clothes, right? In that, in Michigan, when it get cold, y'all can go out and get these new triple fat gooses, and I'm just being funny. But if you hug yourself, okay, so there are winter coats that will actually have heat sensors
Mm-hmm.
in them. You got smart water bottles, okay, that actually go out and say, hey, we need some more water over here.
Mm-hmm.
We need some water here. Of course, in terms of the smartphones, I don't call them actually smartphones. I'll call them pocket computers, because they can do a whole lot more than make a phone call. I'm sure some of your readers remember having to carry 50 cents in their pockets
Yeah.
to make a phone call.
Yeah, and I mean, you are right. I have this question too.
Yes, sir.
In this space, and you're dropping a lot of game. As y'all can see, Terrance is coming back, but the in this same journey,
Okay.
because you've also been involved and watched the metamorphosis
Oh, absolutely.
of the tools, which I kind of feel that way a little bit in the music space. Meaning, like, I learned, as they say, like when it was hardware equipment. Meaning, when I learned my studio recording stuff, I actually reel to reel, like tape decks and stuff like that. Which doesn't necessarily mean that This is my understanding, and I want your take on this too, because I asked my dad this question, and sometimes my dad, he's always challenging my thought process. So depending upon how direct of an answer he'll give, but knowing that I did it the old school way, what it has armed me with is the advantage of doing it of knowing all the digital stuff going on in the background. So for instance, for you all to understand, like right now I'm recording into a Tascam Mixcast 4 recording device. If this was the old school way, what I would have is I would have a microphone, and then I would have a preamp. A preamplifier basically can amplify like the level of voice and loudness that comes through in the microphone, and then it would go into the mixing board, and then the mixing board would then have an out channel to a recording device, usually like a tape deck, that will record it. Right now, I have the Mixcast 4 just connected directly to my microphone. It's a preamp in here, and it also is a SD card for me to record it. The reason I'm breaking it down is so even when I touch any new equipment, I know the steps it's going through, from knowing that it used to take multiple pieces to put this all together. And I feel it's a kind of an advantage I have over a person that's learning it now, because I'm understanding more of the mechanisms inside of it and what should exist in this, whether it should or not, and how things can expand. Because sometimes I will accompany other pieces, and I still own some preamps and stuff like that I could and have the option to use depending upon if I want to mix microphones or something like that. Do you feel that your understanding for coding, your understanding for computer languages arms you with something different? And one of the biggest discussions I have, where I'm about to get really nerdy, is I'm known for the long
Nerds run the world.
is My dad, the language that so many things are coded on is a language that's one of the original computer languages of COBOL. And I don't think a lot of people understand.
We ain't cool no more.
I don't think a lot of people understand how much is, like, when people talk about the technological advancement and all of that stuff, and then I tell them, like, do you know that a lot of this stuff that you're talking about is still interacted upon like COBOL systems, where it has been engineers using the same system, rewiring and things, and adding code on top of to now integrate in new systems, to the internet, to the cloud systems, and new servers and stuff. But these systems were really created and designed like in the 60s.
Even before that. So, yeah. So, to your question.
So, there we go.
Yes, I do feel that it has given me an advantage. And so, going back to my junior year, that was around the time where Windows 3.11 came out. That was Windows, okay, Windows for internet working, okay. That was pre any of the certifications that folks can get now that I do actually
have.
Not just have, but I'm a Michigan Work certified trainer for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and CY SA Plus. And so Novell actually was the first one that got into the game of saying, we need y'all to be certified on how to use this equipment and all of that kind of stuff. But to your point, I do oftentimes tell my students, whether you want to be on the hardware side of the house, okay, or the software side of the house, that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because COBOL, Fortran, those languages are still
very
out there,
active.
Okay, in financial
very
industry,
much so,
in manufacturing sectors, because that's what those systems still need. But when we're talking about APIs, okay, and these new coding languages, was APIs are just application program interfaces. So there's all this cool GUI stuff that we used to seeing today. In many cases, it's still just terminal host networking on steroids, i.e. you are connecting to something from a DERM terminal, okay, i.e. your computer, a lot smarter than the terminals, but you connecting to a terminal, i.e. your browser is connecting, you putting something in, and somewhere else on the back end, that's being processed, and you get to CNN.com.
And I bring this up because I'm not even the sharpest knife in the cupboard with this. I just have a dad that tells me some of these discussions, and I pry at these questions when I come across brothers like you and my pops.
But you there,
the other
though.
question that I have is, even like when people talk about like, oh man, the vulnerability, and now that we can get right into cybersecurity of like even air traffic control. I don't know if anybody travels, like it'll be certain days where it'll be like, okay, everything shuts down in one particular airport. But a lot of the air traffic control is still built upon some of these same COBOL and older computer languages.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
If you don't have, and a lot of the people, this is the other discussion me and my dad have, a lot of the people that really know these older languages, it's not like they're still really even teaching them.
No.
And it's brothers like, you're almost like become like a.
You can call us dinosaurs. We're dinosaurs.
But the dinosaurs are needed because these languages are still being used, and it's just a
Absolutely.
reliance that, oh, this will always work. This will always work. This will always work. How vulnerable are a lot of people? Well, first, even before we get to the vulnerability, how aware are people to that? A lot of the computers, as much as we think are right now in advance, we're still using so antiquated languages. How aware, if you gave a percentage of that, of
a percentage, the average American, not to sound cliche, but I would say probably about, using the 80-20 rule, maybe 20%.
Okay. And with that, how vulnerable do you think are most systems when we think of the large systems? I'm talking about like the financial industry, the transportation industry.
They're extremely vulnerable because we have these distributed computing models. They was talking about going back to your point in the 50s and 60s that we did not want to have the type of distributed computing models
Now you're
that
gonna have
we
to define
have
that. You got to define that for me.
because we the secure is extremely hard to secure networks when, first of all, the internet was never designed to do what it's doing today.
So first, define distributed.
So distributed systems, or when you have systems in different places doing different things. Okay, so the internet is an example of distributed systems. So there is a core with the internet, but if we just look at just your household and my household, so now I got truly post COVID, we got home office, home and office. So there is no distinction or very little distinction, and so what I'm doing in terms of what we got at any point in time, we probably got 10 different devices doing different things. Okay, coming from, but it's one network. Vice your house. Okay, you got 10 different devices doing different things on that network. So we got these distributed networks, okay, LANs, or going back to, I might have Comcast in terms of ISP, and then you may have other folks that may have AT&T, okay. So now we got our own networks, okay, internal, using different networks in different locations to connect to different resources. But now, going back to the distributed systems, and going back to my example, we got 10 different machines in my household doing different things. I know we got 2 switches, we got 3 laptops, we got 2 gaming systems, all doing their own kinds of things, all being able to save their own files, all having different varying levels and types of vulnerability. So that's distributed systems rather than having, going back to what I said, terminal host model, where you are just using that terminal to input information. All the processing is happening at a main system, i.e., hence the word mainframe. That's all the process. No. In the distributed model, that processing, that data entry is going on in different places.
And to that, as my dad, one of the last conversations we had in this is like, the term I usually use is like the handshake.
Yep.
Is the vulnerability. So the handshake is basically, like right now, I have a lot of stuff. I use Google Drive when I share files with clients usually. So it's a handshake. That handshake is going from my computer into this system. And right now, people like look at the cloud as if it's like in the air. A cloud is nothing but the server base that is extent. But I'm also relying on this cloud to have a server that is secure. And this is really the discussions my dad gets into, especially when it gets into accounting and the protection of your files, like the SOC reports, because a lot of the files that Google, when I put a file in Google Drive, if I were to read the Google Drive policies and stuff like that, they probably say like, okay, most of our network is secure, but it doesn't get into a lot of what they call secondary hosting that does exist. And some of the secondary hosting, they have their secondary hosting.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the secondary hosting has their secondary hosting, where basically, I don't know if y'all seen like these memes online of like somebody in like Kazakhstan with like a goat, and it's like all of these computer servers together that don't have the block cool temperature concrete and everything exists, because the file that I put up could go through 7 different servers before it comes back to when I send a file to a client and they pull it down. It's no telling where it may be moved in different handshakes, because usually what's being audited, hence the SOC report, of where these files are being stored is the top layer. and nothing into like the secondary components usually.
Absolutely. So let's unpack some of the stuff that you said. So, irrespective of whether is non-digital or digital, in terms of a network, you got 4 components: sender, receiver, medium, or the message. Okay. In the case, let's go to classroom. Okay. In the case of a classroom, typically the sender is the teacher, the receiver, the students, the message is whatever lesson he or she talking about today, and the medium is the air. That's what actually carries the message and the ears and all of that without having to go into science. In the case that you were saying, let's have just a simple thing. So, digital. You sending an email. Okay. So you the sender. Well, let me say I'm the sender. I'm sending you an email. Okay. So I'm the sender. You the receiver. The message is whatever that email is, to include the attachments. Okay. And then that medium is my connection. Whether that connection is a Wi-Fi connection or that connection is a hardwired connection. Now, to get to your point, there is what's called a router, okay? And so routers, just like the name implies, it says this is the route that, let's put the paperboy stuff in there, that you got to go as a paper route carrier to make sure that these folks get the message. In that case, it's the paper. So to your case, it can be anywhere. And that's what you were saying in terms of going back to those means. But the routers are also called hops. When we are IT folks, the hops that it takes for you to get from where you are sending it to wherever the receiver is. And that receiver can be in Detroit, or it can be going to Prince Akeem in Zamunda.
So your interest in cybersecurity, when did it peak? What was what made that? And I guess you always had some interest in it, but when did it become like, okay, I'm venturing into this for business?
So, shortly after my junior year of my stint with the state of Michigan, in terms of my engineering and IT co-op position, Johnson Controls picked me up as an engineering intern in Lapeer. And then 3 months before I graduated, they picked me up as a quality engineer. They was like, we ain't got a position, but we need to keep you. And I was like, oh, heck, yeah, I ain't gonna take a real job before I graduate from college. Between the time they first hired me and me getting a quality engineering job, I helped them put in the LAN system, from scratch.
Local area network.
Local area network, which all that is, if expand that to whatever your network is at home, imagine expanding that and you doing whatever entrepreneurial endeavor that you wanted to do for Johnson Controls. And so I asked our systems manager at that time, what did he think about me getting a master's in information systems management to complement my operations management degree, not knowing that at that time Johnson Controls had bought Prince Corporation in Holland, Michigan, and not knowing that the chief information officer for Prince Corporation was on the board for Fair State's program that I was looking to go into. 2 weeks later, they shot me over to Holland, Michigan. They asked me what I wanted. I wanted a 50% raise. I wanted to be the assistant network services manager, and I wanted to be in this master's program. They did not blink. 2 weeks after that, I was in Holland, Michigan. Total culture shock, just in terms of different side of the state and all of that. Yeah. But of anything that shocked me, and if any of your listeners know, snow, the winters over there, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy over there. But that experience at the age of 25, being assistant network services manager, this was when 311, actually NT was out, and then also Windows NT. and then Novell Netwear was the combination. And so me being the assistant network services manager, I was part of my role was to make sure the network was secure. So back then it was more information system security, and it grew into cybersecurity, which is actually at the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
In terms of work. But I knew once I got my opportunity or my feet wet to do more of the developing and building of networks with Johnson Controls, which was actually kind of sparked by my role as a civil engineer, because that's infrastructure, right? I'm kind of biased. If you don't have infrastructure, if you don't have roads, bridges, cities, airports, then no other engineering is really relevant. So building infrastructure, to your point, was something that I really loved, and given the opportunity to be on the front end of IT the way that I was, just said, you know what, I just got to keep going down this route, getting these certifications, developing and leading training arms. And I mean, even then, I was just one of a few, and I got really comfortable with being uncomfortable as an IT person speaking in front of folks.
Now,
This was the early to mid 90s.
yeah. So as that you're watching and witnessing working in that industry as it's looked at, as you said, nerds rule the world, especially now. But like it goes from, and then you have backgrounds in some of the most industrial cities. Flint, Akron, the Rubber City. That's the other name for the
Right.
tires. But and then also Flint. Like that blue collar, hard work, hard day.
Absolutely.
It's you're in that scope, so you're even in an industry as I would say that we had some renaissances in America. You had
Automotive systems as a whole, to just wrap up all what you were talking about. So the whole vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, we go from obviously, the enslavement of our people dealt with a lot of the agricultural age,
Absolutely.
to the industrial age,
Absolutely.
to the automation age. It like mixing industry
We are
with
in the
computer
so-
systems, and now we're in the information technology age. But you're like in the cusp of that industry as things are shifting from the industrial age. So it almost like not only are you engaged in place setting of a culture and changing people's dynamics of a brother in that industry, but you're also probably going from like I can imagine your family reunion in 1992, you probably had like cousins closer to your age that may have been like foreman at like a Ford or a General Motors.
Absolutely.
And then by the time it's 2000 and everybody's walking up to them like, hey, what's going on, cousin? You the guy. Like, you the guy of our family. Like, we rely, you the place setter and everything. And then by 2002, you almost assume that position because society has changed before our eyes.
Absolutely. No, that's it's really funny because we just actually had for my dad's side of the family, we actually had our family reunion last weekend in Cincinnati. And
Okay.
so my aunt, who actually hosted, so she was actually part of the original team for IBM to help them roll out their first wave of PCs.
Wow.
She worked in Japan, met her husband, my uncle, who is the most recent past president for Fisk.
Mm-hmm.
As in HBCU Fisk.
Yeah.
And so we got cousins all throughout the military doing all kind of awesome stuff. But because of the mobility, right, they always ask me all kind of questions at the family reunion. How can we do this? How can we do that? I'm like, can I unplug from the Matrix?
Exactly. Can I eat this piece of chicken?
Can-
No,
I thought
not
we
at
had
all.
field day and we're supposed to be doing all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, it's really cool because even going back to the paper route and the definition that I have for technology, I looked at that paper as a technology. I've always enjoyed helping people use technology to step into their greatness, whatever that is. For folks. But and of course, I had to help. My older cousins, and the little cousins. They want to connect to their devices, to connect to all these different kinds of video games, and when watching movies and all that kind of stuff. So that was a great thing. But no, it's been an interesting shift. Not just for my family, but for a lot
I was
of
gonna say
families.
America,
Because
but
we've got,
yeah,
I'm always talking about a situation where we've got parents interacting with digital devices, and their kids. And I'm not talking school age kids. I'm talking 3, 4, 5 years old. Are a lot more savvy
hmm
than the parents.
yeah,
And we gotta figure that out, man. I mean, at the end of the day, we have an opportunity as black and brown folks in Detroit to really be the foam on the wave of this cybersecurity movement, and in terms of just breaking it down. Okay, so cybersecurity is just a process for me. Okay, and it's a journey. It's not a destination. It's a process of ensuring that your digital devices, okay, do not get infected, okay, by nasty stuff out there, i.e., malware, electronic devices, okay, and this is risk. Going back to the lowering the risk of not just your devices, okay, being infected, but also lowering the risk of you being hacked. Okay, I call it hacking humans. If you all have ever heard the term social engineering, that's all. It's hacking humans. And for my puzzle solvers out there, okay, all social engineering is putting together the puzzle with respect to having individuals give you information that you can use to break into their account and steal their digital assets. Okay.
yeah.
So there's phishing, okay, which you get sent emails, okay, and if any emails is asking for
It's a
money.
lot of phishing text messages
Oh,
nowadays too.
absolutely. So, if it's sense of urgency, if folks ask you for money, you seeing misspellings,
Mm,
okay, or hyperlinks, or strange hyperlinks, or strange attachments, delete it. Just
yeah,
delete it. Report, but also, okay, report it, okay? Just like we have physical crimes, and you do what? You report it to the police, and the police do what? They develop a profile, okay? If you don't report those things, they cannot develop a profile for the bad guys that are trying to do these bad things. I oftentimes say there is the evil empire out in cyberspace, okay? And we are the republic. We have to be due diligent, or very diligent, in making sure that we're helping folks identify not just phishing, okay? There's vishing, which is phone calls.
mhm.
There's smishing, okay? And that's out there. And smishing is text messages. And I don't know if you all have seen, I'll say over the past year and a half, which has been since the government has allowed Bell and all these other telecom carriers to kind of truant themselves. I've seen an uptick in just
Yeah,
weird, just text out
hmm
of
yeah,
nowhere
yeah.
kind of deal.
And using local numbers too,
Losing local
because
numbers.
now as we know, phones can be dataed, where like just due to, like, I think it was like collection agencies would be like, okay, I'm gonna just buy,
A whole
it's
block of
10,000 people in Detroit owe us money, so let's have the availability to use a mix of 400 Detroit phone numbers to keep calling these same 10,000 people over and over and over and over and over again. But like a lot of stuff in technology, as you create a solution for one group, that solution now is going to be monetized. Well, really, this is not even technology. This is America. When you create a solution and then it's going to be monetized by somebody. You know, whether you the Kroc brothers, whether you the McDonald's brothers or Ray Kroc, somebody's going to be Ray Kroc for your solution.
Absolutely. The one thing that would add in tech, though, right, because we're looking at digital technology or information technology, right, because there's the good guy.
Yeah.
And there's the bad guy.
And oftentimes with information technology, because our government is still very green, it's a lot of the bad guys that are the lead developers and informants and, like, quote unquote, as they say, like historically. I mean, I want to say I watched that American Greed show, and I want to say a more recent American Greed. It's like one of the biggest hackers ever helped design and bring down a couple other hackers, and then he went right back into hacking. So the government was defending it like, well, while he was working with us, none of his stuff was used, but you just never really know, because it's like if you're venturing into an industry where you're not it's kind of like it's a new culture for the government to understand tech. So if the government culture doesn't understand tech culture, which to me, a lot of the government culture is animated with the idea of industrialization, because that's when FBI was building, it was an industrial age. Hence, this has been one of, and I want your opinion on this too. So it's animated in the idea of industry, the way schools are. That's why the school building looks like it looks. That's why the school bell goes off like it, because it was, in a lot of ways, as you talk about human engineering, the idea of a lot of public school was to humanly engineer people to be able to go to a factory. Hence the FBI employee. Whereas when I'm not bashing it per se, but like when Ford purchased the building, the old train station, and the big grand gala, and they were like, okay, this is going to be the center of where the autonomous vehicle will be created. And I said to myself, this is going to be tough, because the culture of Ford motor industry is so different than the culture of tech industry, that getting the employee, like, here you go, getting the person with 25 face tattoos and purple hair that wants to live in Estonia for 1 week, and then Colombia for another week, and then Israel for another week, and then in Nairobi for the other week, to be a part of Ford culture, which is similar to Focus Hope culture, because it's animated like that, where it's a meeting upon 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 a meeting, and a meeting about the last meeting. There's just so different cultures. White collar culture of automotive industry versus technological culture are so different. So when people wonder, like, why is Tesla so good? Because Elon Musk animated, and I'm not giving all credit to him, but Tesla was developed inside the industry of where tech is, as opposed to trying to get tech to fit inside Ford's culture. So that's just Akari. So
no, you are so right on a whole lot of levels. Let me say that we got about.
I know. We wrap
about. I can give you about 7 minutes because I gotta go back.
All right.
But we over time though too.
I know. We are.
Which is all good. So, man, you packed a lot of stuff.
So I just want, and we can close on this. What's your take on? And I'm saying that about Ford, but what's your take for any business that's looking to work and expand their technological scope, but they're green? They really don't know what they're doing. How can they develop a trust in the right tech person to help their organization expand in technology? Let's just close on that.
So this is an excellent point to close on, and I would go all the way back to the difference that I made between technology and information technology. And what I didn't say then, I'm going to say now to just underscore what you're saying. You can have technology, meaning your business can run okay, without having IT. But you can't have your business having IT without having technology. Meaning that whatever technologies, and I'll use it, whatever digital social mediums that your company is going to adopt, you need to look at what technologies your companies are actually using, that the adoption of that IT is going to either enhance one of four things: productivity. So how is that social medium going to help you do more with less? Definitely it's going to help you meet more people, but is it the right people? Is it the right message? Is it going to enhance the scope? Is it going to bring in revenue a different way? Or what combination of those three is it going to provide your business? You have to understand your business before you can go out and say, "Oh, I just want Office 365. I want to use Facebook. I want to use Instagram. I want to use tablets. I want to use Android versus iPhone." We need to understand your business. Now, on the flip side of the house, one of the things I oftentimes tell my IT folks is we got to get off our high horse. We know the tech, but you got to be able to talk tech without talking tech. In that we are a service. How are you serving your business? How are you enhancing your organization's triple bottom line?
I like it. With that, y'all know I got so many more. You know Terrance is coming back because there's so many more questions.
Anytime.
Thank you
brother.
so much. Let the people know how they get in contact with you too.
So, the best way to get in contact with me is through my National Cyberwatch Center account. And so that's T Campbell at nationalcyberwatch.org. Nationalcyberwatch.org. And so for those that we didn't talk about that today, for those that are wondering what the connection is for me and Cyberwatch, is that I'm actually a published researcher, okay, in IT, and you're not going to find a whole lot of published black IT researchers, but I'm also the lead developer for them for their cyber arcade. And all that is for my old school folks that used to go to Chuck E. Cheese, Showbiz, and whatever stand-up arcade you had and played video games. We're actually developing some of those video games, but they enhanced our remake of them, or they're focusing on preparing you for cybersecurity careers.
That's great. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to get you back.
Can't wait to come back.
All right, peace be.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.